For 6 years, my life was centered around Mark. He had made a promise that we would get married as soon as his business was on solid ground. I trusted him completely. But then I discovered a folder he had hidden on his computer. It was full of screenshots of conversations he'd had with his friends. In one of them, he had typed, "She's just a convenient placeholder until I can get Sophie back." That evening, at his company's big event, I stood in a corner, unable to move, as I watched him get down on one knee and ask her to marry him. The whole room started clapping, but the only thing I could hear was the sound of my own heart breaking into pieces. Just then, my phone started ringing. It was Eleanor, my old mentor, calling me with some surprising news about her son. I can still remember the day I met Mark Thompson. It was 3 years ago at a conference for digital marketing. I was there to represent the company I worked for. He immediately caught my eye. He was tall and carried himself with confidence, and he had a smile that just seemed to pull people toward him. I was one of those people. "Your talk on connecting with customers emotionally was fantastic," he told me as he gave me his business card. "Anna Miller, right? I would really like to discuss working together sometime." That first meeting over coffee turned into a dinner date, and that dinner date turned into 6 years of what I had believed was a life we were building together. Mark was driven and had a certain charm. He made me feel like he genuinely cared about me. Our relationship progressed quickly. Before a year had passed, we were living together in a modern apartment in the middle of the city. It had huge windows from the floor to the ceiling, and the view was so incredible it took my breath away every single morning. "Someday," he would say, putting his arms around me as we stood looking at the city lights below, "I'm going to give you a ring. I just need to get the company through this next stage of funding." I believed him. His new company was starting to do well, and I knew how much pressure he was under. My own career was going great, too. I had recently been promoted to the position of creative director, the youngest one in the history of my company. "You two are the perfect couple," my colleagues would say to me at work parties, "the ultimate power couple." But Eleanor saw things differently. She had been my professor in college. Then she became my mentor, and over time, she became like a mother to me. My own parents had moved back to their home country, so Eleanor was the person I relied on for support. "He didn't show up for your awards night again," she said to me one afternoon while we were having lunch. Her eyes were sharp and observant behind her fashionable glasses. "That's the third major event he's missed." I stirred my soup, a feeling of unease settling in my stomach. "He's just really busy. The investors are putting a lot of demands on him." Eleanor didn't push the subject, but her silence spoke of volumes. Then she changed the topic. "My son, Ben, is coming back home next month," she said. "He's been with a humanitarian group for 5 years, but he's taking a position at Memorial Hospital." "The famous Ben," I said with a smile. "I've seen so many pictures of him in your office, I feel like I know him already." "You two would like each other," Eleanor said, and her smile seemed to have a hint of something else I couldn't quite figure out. "He's always asking about you." That conversation felt like it was from a different lifetime now. Last Tuesday, I needed to use Mark's laptop to put the finishing touches on a presentation because I had spilled coffee on mine and it was being fixed. I had just sent the file to my own email when a notification popped up on his screen. It was a message from someone named Kevin. "Did you tell the placeholder about the ring yet?" A cold feeling started to spread through me. I already knew something was wrong. I clicked on the message and it opened a chat history in an application I had never seen before. Mark's reply was right there. "No chance. Anna is still useful to me for now. As soon as Sophie agrees, I'll handle the situation." My hands seemed to move by themselves as I scrolled up through months of their conversations. Every message was like a knife twisting in my gut. "Anna looks good to the public. The investors like to see a stable relationship. She has no clue that Sophie is back in the city. The placeholder keeps my bed warm while I work on getting the queen back." And then, the most recent one. "The ring is here. I'm going to do it at the company party tomorrow. Sophie is on board." I just sat there completely still as the sun went down and the apartment filled with darkness. When Mark got home, I was in the same spot he had left me in that morning, but my world had been turned upside down. "Hey, honey," he said, giving me a kiss on the cheek. In the dim light, he didn't seem to notice that my eyes were red and swollen. "You're still planning on coming to the party tomorrow, aren't you? You should wear that blue dress. The investors' wives will be there." I just nodded, feeling numb. The investors' wives. I was just another piece of the perfect picture he was trying to create. "Are you okay?" he finally asked, noticing that something wasn't right. "Just feeling tired," I said in a quiet voice. "I have a big presentation tomorrow." "That's my girl," he said, giving my shoulder a squeeze. "Always working so hard. We're a team, you know?" Those words had always made me feel secure, but now they felt like poison. 6 years. 6 years I had spent believing that I meant something to him. 6 years of thinking I was the only one. But to him, I had just been a convenience. I couldn't sleep at all that night. I just lay in bed, going over and over the things I would say to him at the party. I wanted to confront him, to maintain my dignity while making it clear that I knew the truth. By the time morning came, I had rehearsed my speech in my head until I knew it by heart. I had locked away all my emotions, ready to give the performance of my life. What I wasn't prepared for was to see him get down on one knee in front of Sophie Chen, his company's financial consultant, right in the middle of a speech about his vision for the future and finding the perfect partner. The room started to spin as Mark's voice came through the speakers. "Sophie, you were always the one for me. These years we've been apart have only proven what I've known since we were in college. You're the woman I want to have by my side for the rest of my life." The diamond ring he presented was the same one I had pointed out in a jewelry store window once. I could still remember him squeezing my hand then and saying, "One day." It was just another lie. People were clinking glasses all around me as champagne was passed out for a toast. Someone accidentally bumped into me and mumbled that they were sorry, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I was frozen, watching the whole thing play out like a terrible movie. Sophie covered her mouth with her perfectly manicured hands, pretending to be surprised, but her eyes showed nothing but a sense of victory. She knew this was going to happen. "Yes!" she cried out, her voice loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, 1,000 times. "Yes!" The crowd cheered and clapped. Only then did Mark's eyes meet mine for a split second. I saw a hint of guilt in his expression, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by a look of triumph. He had gotten what he wanted. The placeholder had served her purpose. A woman standing near me leaned over to her friend and whispered, "Isn't that his girlfriend?" She gave a little nod in my direction. "Ex-girlfriend, I suppose," her friend answered, not even trying to hide her amusement. That poor girl, she never had a clue. But I had found out. I just found out too late. Only 24 hours too late. Suddenly, the room felt like it was closing in on me. The air was too heavy to breathe. Without a word to anyone, I slipped out through a side exit. The blue dress I was wearing, the one Mark had picked out for me, brushed against my legs as I walked quickly out into the night. The cool air on my face helped bring me back to reality. I took off my high heels and carried them in one hand, wandering through the city streets without any destination, barely noticing the strange looks I was getting from people passing by. 6 years. 6 years I had spent planning a future with someone who was secretly making other plans without me. After a while, I ended up in a small, quiet park and sat down on a bench under a street lamp. I thought about all the times Mark had been on his phone during our dinners, telling me it was work-related. How many of those times was he actually texting Sophie? How many of his business trips were really secret getaways with her? The most painful part was the realization that they had all known, his friends, and maybe even his family. Everyone knew, except for me. My phone started to vibrate in my purse. I steeled myself, thinking it was Mark, but it was Eleanor, my old mentor. Her voice was calm and full of concern. "Anna, are you okay?" "I've been trying to call you." My own voice sounded empty when I answered. "How did you know?" There was a brief silence on her end, and then she said, "Let's just say it's a mother's instinct. I've always thought of you like a daughter, you know." Those simple, kind words were enough to break the dam I had built around my emotions. The tears started to flow, and I told her everything through my sobs. The messages, the proposal, the public humiliation. "Where are you right now?" Eleanor asked, her voice gentle but firm. I looked around, feeling lost. "Harrison Park, I think. Near the big fountain." "Don't move. I'm in town for conference, and my hotel is only 10 minutes from there. I'm coming to get you." 20 minutes later, her silver car pulled up to the side of the road. She got out, looking composed and elegant as always, even in her casual clothes. Her face showed a mix of sympathy and controlled anger. Without saying a word, she pulled me into a hug that felt safe and warm. "You're coming to stay with me tonight," she said in a firm voice, "and I don't want to hear any arguments." The hotel suite was warm and peaceful. Eleanor led me to the sofa, wrapped a soft blanket around my shoulders, and put a hot cup of tea into my hands. She didn't press me for more details. She just sat next to me, a solid and calming presence, as I stared blankly into space. "I should have known," I whispered. There were so many signs. "Love can make us ignore the things we don't want to see," she said. "That's not your fault. It's his betrayal." 6 years, I said quietly. I gave him 6 years of my life. "And now," Eleanor said, her voice gentle but strong, "you have the rest of your life back to give to someone who actually deserves you." I let out a bitter laugh. I don't think I can ever trust my own judgment again. "You will," she said with a quiet certainty. "When the right person comes along, you'll know the difference." I took a small sip of tea, and its warmth spread through me, helping to calm my nerves. "I don't even have anywhere to go," I admitted. "All of my things are still at his apartment." "You can stay here for as long as you need to," Eleanor said immediately. "And as it happens, my son Ben is flying in tomorrow. He's been looking for someone to sublet his apartment downtown while he stays with me for a couple of months." The timing felt almost too convenient. I looked at Eleanor with a skeptical expression, but she just shrugged her shoulders with a look of innocence. "Let's just call it good timing," she said with a small smile. "You need a place to stay, and he needs a tenant." She paused for a moment, as if considering what to say next. "And maybe," she added gently, "meeting someone new, someone who is a decent person, might help you remember that not all men are like Mark." I woke up to the sun streaming in through curtains I didn't recognize. For a second, I felt confused, not sure where I was until the memories of the previous day came rushing back. Mark's public proposal to Sophie, the messages I had read, Eleanor finding me on that cold park bench. A gentle knock on the bedroom door brought me out of my thoughts. "Anna? I have coffee and breakfast out here if you're awake," Eleanor called, her voice bright and kind. "Coming," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and cringed. My eyes were puffy and red, my mascara was smudged, and my hair, which I had styled for the party, was a complete mess. After a quick shower, I put on a t-shirt and yoga pants I borrowed from Eleanor's suitcase and went out into the living area of the suite. The smell of fresh coffee was a welcome comfort. "There you are," Eleanor said with a smile, pushing a mug in my direction. "How are you feeling this morning?" "Like I got hit by a bus," I admitted, sinking down into a chair. But also, strangely, a little relieved. Like I've been carrying a heavy weight without even realizing it. Eleanor nodded, her expression full of understanding. "The truth, even when it's painful, is lighter than living with a lie." I held the warm mug in my hands. "I have to go get my things from the apartment." "There's plenty of time for that," Eleanor said. "First, you should eat something. Then we can make a plan." I ate a few bites of the omelet from room service while Eleanor told me about her schedule. "I have a presentation at 11, but I'm free until then, so we could—" A knock at the door of the suite interrupted her. She looked at her watch and smiled. "That must be Ben. He texted me earlier to say his flight got in early." My hand immediately went to my messy hair. "Eleanor, I can't meet your son looking like this." But Eleanor was already on her way to the door. "Don't be silly. Ben has seen real hardship in war-torn countries. A little bedhead isn't going to faze him." Before I could protest further, she opened the door. "There's my boy," she said excitedly. I heard a warm laugh, and then Eleanor was enveloped in a hug just outside the door. When they came into the room together, I found myself staring. The pictures in Eleanor's office didn't do him justice. He was tall and athletic, with the same warm brown eyes as his mother. Ben had a calm energy that filled the room without being overbearing. Unlike Mark's polished charm, Ben's warmth seemed genuine. "You must be Anna," he said, his smile kind as he held out his hand. "My mom has told me so much about you over the years. I feel like I already know you." I shook his hand, suddenly very conscious of my borrowed clothes and lack of makeup. "All good things, I hope," I said, trying to smile. "Only the best," he answered, then looked at his mother with a questioning glance. She gave him a slight shake of her head, a gesture I wasn't meant to see. "Coffee, Ben?" Eleanor asked, walking over to the kitchenette. "Please. The stuff they serve on airplanes is terrible," he said, taking a seat in a chair and pulling out a paper bag. "I brought those pastries you like from the bakery downstairs." As they chatted easily, I watched them with a small ache in my heart. This is what a family was supposed to be like. Shared smiles, comfortable silences, and small gestures full of love. It was everything Mark and I never really had. My phone vibrated on the table. Mark's name appeared on the screen. 13 missed calls and a new text message. "Where are you? We have to talk. Come home right now." Ben must have seen the look on my face. "Is everything all right?" he asked. I flipped the phone over so the screen was face down. "Just dealing with the fallout of discovering that your boyfriend of 6 years was only keeping you around while he waited for his ex-girlfriend to come back." The words came out more harshly than I had intended, but Ben didn't even blink. "My mom said you were going through a difficult time," he said gently. "For what it's worth, anyone who couldn't appreciate you was never worthy of you in the first place." His simple, direct kindness made my eyes start to water all over again. Eleanor reached over and gave my shoulder a comforting squeeze as she placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of him. "Perfect timing," she said. Ben smiled. "I just returned from 5 years abroad, and I need a reliable person to sublet my condo while I stay with my mom for a bit." I couldn't help but laugh at how perfectly orchestrated it all seemed. "Did you two plan this?" Eleanor and Ben looked at each other with amusement. "I've been telling Ben for years that he should meet you," Eleanor admitted, "but obviously not under these circumstances. The universe works in mysterious ways." Ben just shrugged and took out his phone. "I have some pictures of the apartment if you want to see them. It's not a luxury place, but it's in the city and comes with furniture." He started to show me photos of a condo that looked simple but comfortable. Just then, my phone buzzed again, and then again. "Someone is determined to reach you," Ben noted, raising an eyebrow. I sighed. I need to get my things from his apartment, but I'm not ready to face him yet. Ben and Eleanor exchanged a glance, and then Ben spoke, his voice gentle. "What if you didn't have to face him by yourself?" Eleanor nodded in agreement. "That's what I was thinking. Ben can help with the heavy boxes, and I'll be there to make sure Mark behaves himself." Ben added, "We could go after my mom's presentation. That would give you some time to get ready." Their kindness, especially from Eleanor, who had been a part of my life for years, and from Ben, who I had just met, brought a lump to my throat. I looked at them both and whispered, "I can't ask you to do that." "You didn't," Ben said simply. "We offered." For the first time since I had found out about Mark's betrayal, I felt something other than despair. It wasn't happiness, not yet. But maybe it was the feeling that comes right before happiness. Something like hope. Getting my things from Mark's apartment was both easier and harder than I had anticipated. It was easier because Eleanor and Ben were there with me. Their presence created a buffer between me and Mark's usual attempts to control the situation. But it was harder because being back in that apartment, our apartment, brought back a flood of memories that were as painful as broken glass. We got there in the early afternoon, about 3 hours after Eleanor's presentation. I had used that time to prepare myself, making mental lists of what I would take and what I would leave behind. Ben had insisted that we take his SUV, just in case you decide you want to take the furniture too, he had said. But I didn't want the furniture. I didn't want anything that reminded me of a life that was built on a foundation of lies. My key still worked. The apartment was silent when we went inside. The sunlight streamed through the windows. That same light used to make the space feel full of promise, but now it just made me feel exposed. "It's a nice place," Ben commented, though his tone suggested he found it a little too sterile. "Mark likes a minimalist style," I answered without thinking. Then I corrected myself, adding softly, "I always preferred cozier spaces." Eleanor gently squeezed my arm. "Where should we start?" We started in the bedroom, packing my clothes into suitcases that I had bought for trips we never ended up taking. I went about the task with a determined focus, trying to numb my feelings. The blue dress from the party went directly into a bag for donations. Ben moved around the room quietly, helping me without making me feel awkward. He handled the practical things with a quiet efficiency. When my hands were shaking too much to unhook a necklace, he stepped in and did it for me, wrapping each piece of jewelry carefully in tissue paper. "These are very nice," he said, holding up a pair of silver earrings. "They belong to my grandmother," I said quietly. "They're one of the few things I brought with me from my home country." He nodded and handled them with even more care. "My mother told me you're a talented designer. Did you make any of these pieces?" I was surprised by his question. "How did you know I designed jewelry?" A light blush appeared on his cheeks. "My mom sometimes sends me articles about you. That collection you did last year with the mixed metals, it was really impressive." The thought that Eleanor had shared my work with her son, and that he had actually paid attention to it, touched me deeply. Mark had always dismissed my designs as just a small hobby, no matter how much praise I received from others. We were almost finished when the front door opened. Mark came in, and his expression changed from surprise to a calculated charm as soon as he saw Eleanor. "Professor Martinez," he said smoothly. "What a pleasant surprise." Then his eyes found me and the charm disappeared, replaced by a sharper tone. "Anna, I've been trying to get a hold of you." "We're just here to get my things," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We'll be out of your way soon." His expression darkened when Ben came out of the bedroom carrying another box. "And who is this?" Before I could answer, Eleanor spoke up. "This is my son, Ben. He's helping Anna move." "Move?" Mark scoffed, his composure starting to crack. "Anna, this is absurd. We need to discuss what happened." "What happened?" I repeated quietly. "Are you talking about the part where you proposed to another woman while I was standing right there in the same room?" Mark ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, trying to put on his most remorseful expression. "It wasn't what it looked like. The proposal, it was a business move. Sophie's father is our biggest investor. It's a complicated situation." "No," I said, surprised by the strength in my own voice. "It's not complicated at all. You used me for 6 years while you waited for someone else. You told your friends I was just a placeholder. There's nothing complicated about being betrayed." His eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected me to know about the messages, but he quickly recovered, his voice dropping to that soft, intimate tone that used to make my heart melt. "Anna, baby, those messages were just guys talking. You know how that is. I had to play along. It didn't mean anything." 6 years meant nothing? The pain in my voice was real, but with every word I spoke, I felt myself getting a little bit of my power back. All the promises he had made about our future flashed through my mind. Mark started to walk toward me, reaching for my hand, but Ben casually stepped between us. He didn't say a word or look aggressive, he just made his presence known. "You're causing a scene, Mark," he muttered, his usual charm gone. "This isn't like you." "Maybe you never really knew who I was," I said evenly. Behind me, Eleanor sealed a box with packing tape. The sharp sound seemed to emphasize my words. "I think we're just about done here," I said. "Ben, could you please take these boxes downstairs?" Mark's eyes darted between us, a calculating look on his face. "Professor," he said, turning to Eleanor, "surely you can understand the complexities of modern relationships. Anna is overreacting. It was basically a business decision." Eleanor's expression turned icy. "What I understand, Mr. Thompson, is that you betrayed the trust of someone I care about very much," she said. "And in my experience, when someone shows you their true character, it's rarely a one-time thing." Her words hung in the air as Ben came back for another load. Together, we moved the last of my things out of the apartment. I took one last look around at the place that had once represented my future, and I was surprised by how little it hurt anymore. At the door, I turned to Mark. "I'll email you about the details of breaking the lease," I said. "That ring you gave Sophie must have been expensive, so I'm sure you won't have a problem covering the fees." His face contorted with anger, but before he could say anything, I stepped out and closed the door behind me. In the elevator, Eleanor put her arm around my shoulder. "You handled that beautifully," she said warmly. Ben nodded, his eyes kind. That was one of the most dignified exits I've ever witnessed. For the first time in days, I smiled. A real smile that reached my eyes. It felt good to stand up for myself. "This," Ben added as the elevator doors opened, "is just a new beginning." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of unpacking, paperwork, and dealing with unexpected waves of emotion. Eleanor stayed for 2 more days before she had to go back to her university. She didn't leave until she was certain that I was settled and comfortable in Ben's condo. The apartment was just as he had described it, simple but cozy, with shelves full of books and photos from his humanitarian work on the walls. "Call me whenever you need to," Eleanor said before she left. "It doesn't matter if it's day or night." "I will," I promised, feeling genuinely grateful for her kindness. Ben turned out to be a very considerate temporary roommate. He slept on the pull-out sofa and let me have the bedroom, always maintaining a respectful distance that never felt awkward or like he was doing me a favor. "I'm heading to my mom's place tomorrow," he said on the third morning as we were having breakfast. "Will you be okay here on your own?" I nodded, spreading jam on a piece of toast. "Honestly, I think some quiet time is exactly what I need right now." "I understand." He slid a key across the table. "This is for the building and the mailbox. You can stay as long as you need to. I've already paid the rent through December, so you just need to cover the utility bills." I was surprised by his generosity. "That's incredibly kind of you, but I can afford to pay the rent." Ben shook his head. "Consider it prepaid. My mom thought you might need a little financial breathing room after everything that's happened." His thoughtfulness made my throat feel tight. "Thank you," I said softly. He smiled his usual easy, genuine smile. "Just make sure you water my plants. The big one is particularly dramatic. If you miss watering it one time, it acts like it's on its deathbed." I laughed. "I think I can handle a few dramatic plants. As a creative director, managing drama is part of my job description." The mention of work made us both pause. I hadn't gone back to the office since the party. I had called in sick while I tried to figure out what to do next. "Speaking of work," I said with a sigh, "I should probably check my work emails. I've been avoiding them." Ben hesitated for a moment before he spoke. "My mom mentioned that Mark has some influence at your company." "He does," I confirmed. "His company is one of our biggest clients. That's what makes going back so complicated." "Have you considered looking for other opportunities?" I raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting I should quit my job? Wouldn't that be letting Mark win?" "Not at all," Ben replied, leaning forward. "I'm suggesting that you should know when a situation is stacked against you. Sometimes the most intelligent move is to make a strategic retreat." His words stayed with me long after he left that afternoon. Later, I opened my laptop and finally went through my work emails. Just as I had suspected, there was a message from the Human Resources Department. They wanted to set up a meeting to talk about some concerns that had been raised by a valued client. No names were mentioned, but I didn't need a name. I knew it was Mark's doing. The next day, I went into that meeting with a calm and clear head. My boss, Vanessa, looked uneasy as she went over the complaints. Accusations of unprofessional behavior and a conflict of interest related to the Thompson Technologies account. "These are very serious allegations, Anna," Vanessa said, avoiding my gaze, "especially since they're coming from our second largest client." I placed my letter of resignation on her desk. "I was hoping I would have your support, not that you would give in to false accusations." She looked down at the letter, a flicker of shame in her eyes. "It's not that simple. The Thompson contract is worth millions of dollars." "And my self-respect is worth more," I replied, standing up. "I've already cleaned out my desk." Walking out of the building that had been my professional home for 7 years was a strange feeling. But instead of feeling sad, I felt a sense of freedom. One more connection to Mark had been severed. As I stepped out onto the street, my phone rang. I looked at the screen and was surprised to see Ben's name. "How did it go?" he asked, without any preamble. "How did you know the meeting was today?" "My mom has a sixth sense about these things," he said. "She thought I should check in on you." I laughed in spite of everything. "I quit." "That was a brave thing to do," he said, his approval evident in his voice. "Do you have any regrets?" "Ask me again when I run out of my savings," I joked, though I was only half kidding. "Well, that's actually one of the reasons I called. A friend of mine has a design studio that focuses on ethical fashion and accessories. They're looking for someone with your exact skill set." I stopped walking. "Did you and your mother plan this too?" "It's a complete coincidence," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Though my mom might have mentioned that your jewelry designs would be a good fit for their brand values." "Ben, it's just an introduction," he added quickly. "No pressure, no obligations. The rest would be up to you." I hesitated, feeling protective of the independence I had just fought for. "I need to be able to stand on my own 2 feet right now." "I completely understand," he said with no hint of disappointment. "The offer is there if you change your mind." 3 days later, I did. The interview with Leah Chen, thankfully no relation to Mark at the Conscious Design Collective, went better than I could have hoped. My portfolio did the talking for me. Within a week, I had a new job with better working hours and a team that cared more about ethics than profits. What surprised me the most was how easily my life started to fall back into place once I stopped trying to hold on to something that was already broken. I settled into a new routine: morning walks, creative work at the studio, and evenings spent rediscovering my passion for designing jewelry. Ben checked in with me from time to time, always respectful of my need for space. Sometimes it was just a quick text message about a dramatic houseplant or a book he thought I might enjoy. Other times it was a phone call to see how I was doing. Every conversation with him left me feeling more understood than I ever had with Mark. One evening, about 2 months after the breakup, my doorbell rang. I opened it and found Ben standing there, holding a small potted cactus. "I was in the area," he said, looking a little bashful. "My mom mentioned you've been working long hours, and I thought you might appreciate a plant that doesn't require a lot of attention." The gesture was so thoughtful and sincere that I found myself inviting him to stay for dinner. It was the first time I had willingly shared a meal with a man since Mark. Over a dinner of homemade pasta, we talked and laughed, and I realized something important. I was healing, but I wasn't just going back to being the person I was before. I was becoming someone stronger, someone with a clearer sense of who I was, someone who had learned to trust her own instincts. And for the first time, I was excited to see what the future had in store for me. A few months into my new life, I barely recognized the person I had been when I was with Mark. The constant need for his approval, the way I had walked on eggshells around his moods, the warning signs I had chosen to ignore, it all seemed to fade away like old bruises. In their place, something new and strong had started to grow, real self-confidence. The Conscious Design Collective was the perfect place for me. Leah, my new boss, not only valued my marketing skills, but also encouraged me to pursue my passion for jewelry design. Eventually, she asked me to create a small collection for their spring line. "Your work has a very distinct style," she told me as she looked at my sketches. "It's elegant, but it also has a bit of an edge. We need that kind of perspective." Coming from someone who wanted nothing from me other than my talent, the compliment felt genuine. I threw myself into the project, working late into the evenings and on weekends, feeling more energized and fulfilled than I had in years. It was during one of those late-night work sessions that my phone rang. Eleanor's name appeared on the screen. "How's my favorite jewelry designer doing?" she asked, her voice warm. I was surrounded by sketches and pieces of metal, and I laughed. "I'm buried in work, but I'm happy." "I'm so glad to hear that," she said. Then she paused. "I'm actually calling to invite you to something. It's Ben's birthday next weekend. I'm having a small dinner party, nothing fancy, just a few of his close friends. He asked if you would be able to come." I hesitated. Over the past few months, Ben and I had developed a quiet, steady friendship. Our text messages had evolved into coffee dates, and our conversations would often go on for hours. He had even helped me move a heavy workbench into my spare room, which I had converted into a studio. Another time, I went with him to an exhibition about global health initiatives, where he was one of the guest speakers. But we had always kept clear boundaries. Our interactions were easy and comfortable, but they never ventured into romantic territory. Still, there were times when I caught myself wondering what it would be like if they did. I would love to come, I heard myself say. Should I bring anything? Just bring yourself, Eleanor replied. And even though I couldn't see her, I could hear the smile in her voice. It made me wonder what she was thinking. The night of the dinner party arrived more quickly than I had expected. I spent way too much time trying to decide what to wear before settling on a deep teal dress that I had made myself. The style was simple, but the collar was adorned with intricate metalwork, a design from my new collection. When I got to Eleanor's house, it was filled with warmth and laughter. Ben opened the door, and the way his face lit up when he saw me made my heart do a little flip. "You came," he said, as if he hadn't been sure I would. "I brought this anyway," I replied, handing him a small gift wrapped in handmade paper. "Happy birthday." Inside was a pair of cufflinks I had designed specifically for him. They were silver discs etched with delicate maps of the regions where he had worked with the humanitarian group. When he opened the box, his reaction made all the hours I had spent making them completely worth it. "Anna, these are—" He looked up, his eyes shining. "You made these yourself?" I nodded, suddenly feeling a little shy. The locations might not be perfectly accurate. I had to guess based on the stories you've told me. "They're perfect," he said softly, closing his hand around them. "Thank you." The dinner was small but lively. There was Eleanor, Ben, two of his colleagues from the hospital, and his cousin Maya with her husband. There was no pretense, no forced networking, just easy conversation and genuine connections. I felt completely at ease, and I laughed more than I had in months. Later, Eleanor brought out the birthday cake. It was homemade and a little lopsided, which only made it more charming. My phone started vibrating in my purse. I ignored it at first, but when it wouldn't stop, I quietly excused myself to check it. There were 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize, followed by a text message that made my stomach drop. It was from Sophie. "Mark is in the hospital. He's asking for you." I must have made some kind of noise because suddenly Ben was standing next to me, his face full of concern. "What's wrong?" he asked. I showed him the message, my hands trembling. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. Ben looked at me thoughtfully. "What do you want to do?" It was such a simple question, but it caught me by surprise. No one had asked me that in a very long time. Not what I should do or what was expected of me, but simply what I wanted. "I don't owe him anything," I said slowly, "but I'm not sure if I can just ignore this." Ben nodded, his expression calm and non-judgmental. "If it would help, I could go with you. We could just stop by and see if it's real. You wouldn't have to go by yourself." His offer touched me more than I could say. "But it's your birthday dinner," I said. He just shrugged. Family, good food, and embarrassing stories. I've had all of that. The night is still young. I looked back at the dining room, filled with warmth and laughter. Then I looked at Ben, steady and kind, standing beside me. The difference between this life and my life with Mark couldn't have been more stark. With Mark, I had been a convenience. With Ben and these people, I felt seen for who I really was. "No," I said finally. "I'm not going. Whatever Mark is going through, it's not my problem anymore." I typed a short reply. "I hope he gets better soon. Please respect my decision to move on." Then I turned my phone off completely and went back to the party. Later, as the other guests were leaving, Ben walked me to my car. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said, "and for the gift. It means more to me than you know." "Thank you for inviting me," I replied quietly. A moment of silence passed between us, full of all the things we hadn't said. "Anna," he began, then paused. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you, but I've been hesitant because of everything you've been through." My heart started to beat a little faster. Ask me. Would you be open to having dinner with me sometime? Just the two of us. And just to be clear, it would be a date. The honesty in his words, the lack of games or pressure, made me smile. I would like that very much. As I drove home that night, I realized that for the first time in a long time, I was moving towards something new, not just running away from something old. Alex and I decided to take things at a slow pace. Our first official date was dinner at a small Ethiopian restaurant that he had picked. He remembered that I had once told him I missed sharing meals the way my family used to, all together from one large plate. I thought this might feel a little like home, he said, as we tore off pieces of injera bread to scoop up the warm, flavorful stews. His thoughtfulness was a pleasant surprise. With Mark, our dates had always been about being seen at the right restaurants with the right crowd. But with Alex, it was different. It was never about trying to impress anyone. It was about being present and making a real connection. Over the next few months, we fell into a comfortable rhythm. On weekends, we would go hiking, and he would point out different plants that he had learned about during his time working overseas. In the evenings, we would sit in my studio, and I would teach him the basics of working with metal. His hands were clumsy at first, but he was an eager student. On movie nights, we would debate plot points with a playful teasing that always ended in laughter. "You're different when you're with him," Eleanor said to me one afternoon during one of our regular lunches. "You're more yourself." "What do you mean?" I asked, gently stirring my tea. She gave me a knowing smile. "With Mark, you always seemed like you were putting on a bit of a show. You would laugh a little too quickly, or you would agree with him, even when it was clear you had a different opinion. But with Alex, you argue with him, you take up your own space. You just seem lighter." I leaned back in my chair, surprised. I hadn't realized how much the change in me was visible to others. "Alex makes it easy to be myself," I admitted quietly. "That's what happens when someone loves you for who you really are," Eleanor said. Then she hesitated. "Not just for what you can do for them." She looked like she wished she hadn't said it as soon as the words were out. "It's okay," I said quickly, though the word love had made my heart skip a beat. "I know what you mean." 6 months into our relationship, Alex got an offer from his old humanitarian organization. It was for a 3-month training mission in Thailand to help support the local healthcare providers. We discussed it over dinner at his apartment. "I want to go," he said, looking at me seriously. "The work is important, but this is the first time in my life that I have someone I don't want to leave." His honesty warmed my heart. "You should go," I told him, trying to sound confident. 3 months will be over before you know it." He took my face in his hands. "Are you sure? We could try to work something out. Maybe you could come visit halfway through." The idea was tempting, but I had my own responsibilities. My collection with conscious design had been so successful that Leah had promoted me to creative director of the accessories department. "Let's just see how things go," I said. "Technology makes it easier to bridge the distance." The night before he was scheduled to leave, Alex invited me to have dinner at Eleanor's house. There was something about it that felt significant, like a quiet acknowledgement that our relationship was no longer just between the two of us. Eleanor went all out, making his favorite dishes, as well as some recipes from my family that I had shared with her once. After we finished dessert, she excused herself, giving her son a not-so-subtle wink on her way out. "Real smooth, Mom," Alex called after her, then turned to me with a sheepish grin. "So obvious." "She's the woman who managed to set us up without either of us even knowing it," I teased. He laughed and reached across the table to take my hand. "Speaking of being obvious, I have something for you." He took a small wooden box out of his pocket. My breath caught in my throat, but when I opened it, it wasn't a ring. Inside was a beautiful pendant, a delicate silver compass framed by twisted gold wire. "It's beautiful," I whispered, lifting it out of the box. "I had it made by that artist in the old part of the city that you like so much," Alex said. "With me traveling and you staying here to focus on your career, I wanted you to have something that symbolizes what we're building together." I looked up at him, confused. "A compass always points to true north, no matter where it is," he explained. And I want you to know that no matter where I am in the world, my heart will always point to you." His words brought tears to my eyes. After all of Mark's empty promises, Alex had always been true to his word. No big dramatic gestures, no grand public displays, just a quiet, steady love. "Will you help me put it on?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. His fingers brushed against the back of my neck as he fastened the clasp. In that moment, I felt something I had never really felt before: security. This was what a healthy love felt like: supportive, not possessive, honest, but never cruel. Alex left for Thailand the next morning. The first month without him was more difficult than I had anticipated, but we soon found a routine. We had video calls whenever our time zones lined up, and we would send voice messages when they didn't. He sent me pictures from the clinics where he was working, and I sent him sketches of designs that were inspired by the people and places he described. One evening, as I was working late in my studio, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar and had an international country code. "Anna Miller?" a formal voice asked when I answered. "Yes, this is she. This is Dr. Richard from Bangkok General Hospital. I'm calling about Ben Martinez." My stomach dropped and my hands started to shake. "What happened? Is he okay?" "There was an accident. The car he was in went off the road during a storm. He's in stable condition, but he has a concussion and several broken bones." The next few hours were a blur. I called Eleanor immediately, and she insisted on booking flights for both of us. I contacted Leah to arrange for an emergency leave of absence. My hands were trembling as I threw the essentials into a suitcase. Just as I was about to leave for the airport, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I had blocked months ago. It was Mark. He had heard about my new boyfriend's accident. His message felt like a punch to the gut. Karma's a funny thing, isn't it? First you leave me, and then he leaves you. I stared at the words, stunned by his cruelty. Then, I quietly deleted the message without responding. It was a pathetic attempt to force his way back into my life, but all it did was show me how far I had come. 6 months ago, a message like that might have destroyed me. Now, it only made me realize how small and insignificant he had become in my eyes. On the plane, I held onto the compass pendant Alex had given me, clutching it tightly in my hand as I looked out at the clouds below. I had a profound realization. The way we react to a crisis reveals everything about who we are. Mark used pain to try to manipulate people. Alex used his strength to help others heal. I wasn't flying across the world because I was scared or felt obligated. I was going because my heart was leading me there. For the first time, I felt like my own internal compass had finally aligned with where I truly belonged. The hallway of the Bangkok hospital felt like it went on forever as Eleanor and I followed the nurse to Ben's room. After 26 hours of traveling, I was running on pure adrenaline and anxiety. I could feel the smooth, cool edges of the pendant pressing into my palm like a good luck charm. "He's been asking for you," the nurse said with a gentle smile. "The doctor will explain everything, but the most serious injuries have been ruled out." When we went into the room, Ben was asleep. His face was bruised and his left arm was in a cast. A monitor next to his bed beeped in a steady rhythm. Eleanor let out a small gasp and rushed to his side, gently taking his uninjured hand in hers. A moment later, his eyes fluttered open. He looked confused at first, but then a look of recognition came over his face. "Mom," he whispered. Then his eyes found mine, and despite all his injuries, he smiled. "Anna, you came." The sense of wonder in his voice broke something open inside me. I went over to his side and carefully took his hand. "Of course I came," I said softly. He looked back and forth between us, his eyes heavy with medication but full of warmth. "Both of my favorite women," he murmured. "I must be the luckiest guy in this whole hospital." We learned what had happened in bits and pieces. The car that was carrying Ben and 2 local doctors had lost control during a monsoon downpour, skidding off the road and rolling down an embankment. Even though he was injured, Ben had helped the other 2 doctors get to safety before he collapsed. It was so typically Ben, always putting others before himself. "The fractures will heal cleanly," Dr. Richard told us during his morning rounds. And the symptoms from his concussion are already getting better. He's a very lucky man. When can I go back to work? Ben asked, always focused on his mission. The doctor gave him a stern look. You'll need at least 6 weeks of rest before we even talk about work, Dr. Martinez. After the doctor left, Eleanor looked at her son with a firm, no-nonsense expression. You're coming home with us. You need to recover properly. That is not up for debate. To my surprise, Ben didn't put up a fight. I think that's a good idea, he said. Then he turned to me. If Anna doesn't mind having an invalid disrupting her quiet life. I think I can handle it, I said with a smile, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. 3 days later, we were on a flight back home. Ben was in some discomfort, but he was stable. Eleanor had arranged everything ahead of time, even having a hospital bed delivered to her house. She had turned her study into a comfortable recovery room for him. You don't have to stay, Ben said to me that first evening as I was helping him get settled. You have your work and your own life. I'll be fine with my mom fussing over me. I want to be here, I said simply. Leah gave me 2 weeks to work from home. After that, we'll figure it out. In those 2 weeks, a new routine formed between us. Every morning, I would help Ben with his physical therapy exercises. In the afternoons, I would work on my designs at a table next to his bed. In the evenings, the three of us would share home-cooked meals and watch old movies. Slowly, Ben started to need less pain medication, and little by little, I saw the man I had fallen in love with start to come back to life. It was during this time that I got to know Eleanor and Ben not just as individuals, but as a family. They had their own private jokes, silent ways of communicating, and an easy understanding of each other that could only come from years of deep love and respect. I had never seen anything like it, and a part of me wished that I could belong to something like that. One evening, after Eleanor had gone to bed, I was sitting on the sofa next to Ben, sketching. He was reclining nearby, looking more like himself with each passing day. You're staring, I said, without looking up from my drawing pad. I'm admiring, he replied, his voice soft. I put my pencil down and looked at him. What were you thinking when I walked into that hospital room? He paused, his eyes holding mine. I thought, that's what love looks like. Not flowers or big, dramatic speeches. Just showing up when it really matters. My breath caught in my throat. We hadn't said those words to each other yet, though they had been hanging in the air between us for some time. The accident made things very clear for me, he continued. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes it's cruelly short. I don't want to waste another minute not telling you how I feel. He struggled to sit up a little straighter, wincing in pain. I love you, Anna, not because you flew to Thailand, but because of the person you are. Your strength, your creativity, your kindness. The way you picked yourself up after everything that happened. The way you refused to let someone else's betrayal define who you are. That strength, it's amazing to me. Tears welled up in my eyes at his words. He looked at me, a little uncertain, and added quickly, You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. I moved to sit beside him on the sofa, being careful not to bump his injuries. I reached for his hand, feeling the warmth of him next to me. I love you too, I said softly. The words felt like coming home, and it wasn't because he was the opposite of Mark, but because he was completely and utterly himself, honest, kind, and steady. He smiled, lifting his good hand to touch the compass pendant that I still wore around my neck every day. True north, he said gently. True north, I echoed, feeling the truth of his words settle deep in my heart. 3 months later, on a cool autumn evening, Ben took me to the university garden. It was the same place where Eleanor had first introduced us. By now, we both knew that she had been subtly guiding our paths toward each other for years. Under a canopy of twinkling lights surrounded by the gold and red leaves of early fall, Ben got down on one knee. He was still a little awkward, his legs not yet fully recovered from the accident, but his eyes were calm and clear as he opened a small velvet box. Anna Miller, he said, his voice steady, though I could see the emotion shimmering beneath the surface. I never thought I would meet someone who makes me feel so completely at peace and yet so fully alive at the same time. Would you do me the incredible honor of becoming my wife? The ring inside the box was perfect. It wasn't a traditional diamond, but a deep blue sapphire surrounded by delicate, intricate metalwork that matched the compass pendant he had given me. I recognized the craftsmanship immediately. Did you work with Leah to design this? I asked in awe. He nodded, looking a little nervous now that I hadn't answered him right away. Is that okay? I laughed, the tears already spilling down my cheeks. It's more than okay. It's perfect. And yes, Ben Martinez, I will absolutely marry you. He slid the ring onto my finger, his hands gentle and sure. As he stood up and pulled me into his arms, I thought about the long and winding path that had brought me to this moment. From being someone's convenient option to finding a man who truly saw me and celebrated me for who I was. You know, I said, resting my head against his chest, sometimes I almost feel like I should thank Mark. Ben raised an eyebrow. Really? If he hadn't shown me his true colors, I might still be waiting around for a proposal that was never really meant for me. Instead, I found someone who loves me exactly as I am, not as someone he needs me to be. To unexpected blessings, Ben murmured, leaning down to kiss me. And to true north, I whispered against his lips, knowing that at long last, I had truly found mine.